Then they send you to a place where somebody looks you in the eye and says, strip down, and you gotta go take a shower, and then you come out and they...
Do you think you would survive one day in jail? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But one thing is for sure, after you hear these jail stories from the Joe Rogan Experience, your answer to that question will have changed. Nick Yarris.
How'd you get out? I was being transported to court, and the sheriffs were being cool with me at first. They were talking about what was going on in Philly. They were two nice guys, like 68, 67. And we drove 5 hours from one of the hardest prisons in America called Huntington. And I left there after spending 2 years of my first 2 years in silence. So if you opened your mouth, they would come in and beat your head in. So I was so glad to get in the car because my mom was waiting in my lawyer's office because they were going to give me a review of my trial because they withheld so much evidence. So I was eager to go to court. And it was the coldest day of 1985, February 15th. We stopped at a gas station in Exton, Pennsylvania. And as I got out of the car, the officer driving pulled past the cubicles. Now we all got out of the car and ran over to the cubicle together, and I went in and started peeing. And the officer's holding the door for me, and my eyeglasses start fogging up. You know what I mean? Because you go from the freezing cold to the warm to the cold, your eyeglasses. So all I know is I turn around and I come out, and he has the door like that, and I put my head down, go under his arm, and I turn left and go back to the car, and the dude smoking a cigarette doesn't know that his partner went into the cubicle to piss. And as I'm running back to the dude, he pulls his pistol out and point blank shoots at me, Joe, like, pow! And as it went past my face, I was like, oh shit. I hit the ground. I ran, and he followed me with the gun. I could feel it like I was waiting for him to blast me, you know?
Why did he shoot at you?
Because he thought I overpowered his partner.
Oh.
He doesn't know. His testimony at trial was, I turn around, Nick's running at me, my partner's down or gone. I pulled my gun and he runs, and I wasn't going to let a death row prisoner run, so I tried to stop him. I shot. So I run around the corner, I hit the ground, I ripped all the skin off my hands. I run around the corner and I fly towards this restaurant, and there's all these people innocently eating dinner. And I'm running right towards the plate glass window because he ain't going to blast me, you know? And I ran like I knew he couldn't shoot. And then I shot around the corner and I ran down to a gas station. I tried to steal a car. That didn't work. Then I ran like 400 yards, 400 yards, 400 yards. And I hid behind the car I just escaped from. And I was laying in the weeds behind the gas station about 50 yards from them while they were screaming, who was the bigger idiot for letting this happen? And I was thinking, oh my God, like, what am I doing? What do I do, Joe? What, like, how do I just jump up and say, wait a minute, it was a mistake? You know, they already tried to shoot me in the face.
Right.
So I go hide behind the police station, and the next 4 hours, oh my God, I'm being chased by a helicopter. And he chases me, and he pins me, and he chases me. And I was so fit that I ran for 4 hours through the woods without caring what the branches did to my face or nothing, man. I blew out both quads. I did my hamstrings. I ripped my feet open. I ran so hard in terror that I didn't care, man. And I got away. And I made it all the way to Florida, and I was going to leave the country and all this. And I said, I got to go back.
How did you get to Florida?
I stole a dude's wallet in New York, and I got on an airplane. And I went down to Florida, and I tried to rob a drug dealer.
That's an impressive story, and after hearing all the effort he put into his escape, he deserves to be free. Well, you must be wondering, what did he do now that he escaped? What could cause you to return? Imagine having an epiphany that you had unfinished business in jail. What would you do?
Then I said, no, I'm going back. So I turned myself back in. They put me on death row in Florida. And I went back and I faced it, you know? So they beat me for 4 minutes, man. They broke my face, broke my back, crushed me, man, tortured me. And I thought, I'm gonna get you back. You know, for all the days you made me go in a cage and beat some other prisoner while you stood there with a club laughing at me. I'm gonna get you back. I'm gonna make sure I start being a loving person again.
Next up, we have a story straight from the Gulag and the reality of the violence in jail. Bobby Green and Jacob Benny.
The guy I caught the chain with puts this hit on me. Like they want to try and stab me, right? So it goes around to the other key holders. The fucking guy next to me was a key holder for the Bloods. He's a black guy. Because I kicked that cord over to him, he hit me up through the cell. He's like, hey, he says, is your name Beanie? And I was like, fuck, right? I go back over to the vent, right? And I said, no. and he goes, oh, good. And I went, oh, good. What the fuck does this mean, right? And I'm like, hey, I said, what if it was? And he goes, well, is it or not, fucker? And I go, well, it's not Beanie. I go, it's Baney. And he goes, it's the same shit. I go, okay, bro. He's like, hey, I'm gonna let you know, they're gonna pop this door and they're coming for you. And I was like, really? I was like, what do you mean? He's like, they're gonna come and get you when this door pops. You're gonna pop this door, and you're gonna go to shower, and they're gonna send some guys to come and get you.
Oof.
My other cellie, he knows already. He didn't tell me. In order for that to go down, they have to tell your cellie so your cellie can stay out of the fucking way.
Oh, wow.
So he knows about it, he's known about it, and now he tells me through the wall, and now I know he knows about it. You know what I mean? And I'm living in this room with this guy. So, door pops. My cellie takes off running out of the cell. So I just posted up at the back of the cell, just waiting, you know? And sure as shit, 2 guys come flying in. One guy flying in, trying to stab me. And then we're fucking scrapping, rapping all over the place. Fall out of the cell. We're up the stairs. Fucking push the guy down the stairs. We fall down the stairs. I'm tired as fuck. Like, fighting 2 guys. I'm tired. I'm lumped up a little bit. And I look over this way, and I'm barely breathing. Look over this way, and all the fucking cops just watching. They're just watching.
Oh, my God.
So this other guy come over, he's kicking. I grab the other guy, drag him on top of me, and I'm just choking him, you know, and like trying to use him to deflect this guy from getting at me.
Right.
And then realize this guy's out. He's not even awake. Push him off me, and now it's just me and this guy and everybody in the cells watching, and all the cops watching. So let's tear this fucking guy's ass up. We leave, and this guy never got up. The guy was choking. Never got up. Just eyes full of blood.
Talk about a will to survive. This guy must be feared by his MMA students. Even though this may sound good, it did not improve Jacob Benny's experience in jail.
Guard comes in. We're gonna move you to the gymnasium. So you move me to the gymnasium. So now I'm out of the cell block. I'm in a gym with 300 guys. I can walk around. I get yard access, all this stuff, right? And the cop says, I really appreciate what you did for us out there. He's like, that was pretty fucking amazing. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, I want to get the fuck out of here. Like, I can't be in here. Like, I'm not going to make it out of this shit.
You're getting known to be that guy that's going around.
Oh, no.
They're seeing your skills. I had a similar thing happen to me. First day in, first weekend. And I had to fight this one guy. Fight that one guy. Beat the shit out of him. And now they're like, oh, well, King. And now you're getting this. People are starting to see it.
Right.
This name, it comes with that. And now people want you to teach them. Different shit, like he's actually was in there working out with guys and teaching guys how to roll.
You're just trying to survive your time.
This pressure to now start coaching other inmates would have turned the prison into the next UFC. On the other hand, jail isn't always this bad. Joey Diaz, the popular comedian, holds a contrarian view. He was imprisoned for kidnapping and aggravated robbery in 1988, which was only the beginning of his jail expeditions. Joey Diaz.
In Colorado, the homeless people would commit crimes. They figured out what crimes they would get 60 days for. And they would commit that crime, plead guilty, do the 60 days just to get out of the winter. Because in those days, Boulder would give you tobacco. You were allowed. They would give you tobacco, but you had to roll it.
Really?
That type of shit. Yeah, Boulder County Jail. In 1991, Boulder County Jail and some other jail were voted number 1 and 2 jails in the country.
Wow.
That people would want to go to those jails. Then Boulder built a new jail, and it became fucking communist land, like Aspen.
Communist land? What do you mean?
Yeah, like no cigarettes. Everybody had to wear uniforms. No more staying up till 2 in the morning.
What was wrong with the other way?
Boulder County Jail.
The way was good, the good way.
Oh, Boulder County Jail was a paradise.
Well, what was wrong with that?
It got out.
it got out that it was too nice.
Right. So, like I'm telling you, homeless people would commit a crime to do 60 days.
Joey Diaz had a good time while he was incarcerated, and it seems like he misses those days. He goes on to reminisce about how well the jail would treat non-violent offenders.
So now they determine what you are in for, non-violent or violent. If you're a non-violent offender, the world is yours.
The violent ones are the ones that get lumped in with the other violent ones.
So now the violent offenders, depending on what you do as violent, you go into one sector. And that sector, the longer you're in there, the more rewards you get. So if you're in green, you stay up till 10, and they got cable TV. If you're red, you stay up till 11, and they got cable TV. If you're purple, you stay up till 1.
1 a.m.
Oh my God, Boulder County Jail was tremendous.
1 a.m. and TV and cigarettes.
I didn't drink milk. Milk is big in jail because the bodybuilders like milk. It's like fucking drugs.
Really?
So I would trade my milk for your Kool-Aid. All right, so I was in there drinking fucking Kool-Aids and shit because I fucking hate milk.
This trading must have been very lucrative for Joey Diaz considering his size, but jail wasn't all fun and games for Joey. He later explains a darker side that all prisoners were vulnerable to.
Then they send you to a place where somebody looks you in the eye and says, strip down, and you got to go take a shower, and then you come out and they put a finger up your ass to see if you got contraband. And they give you tighty whities and an orange jumpsuit.
So they put like a rubber glove on and then lube their finger up?
It doesn't matter.
It does.
At that point, I didn't give a fuck. You're putting a finger up my ass. It breaks you down as a man as much as anything in the world. That's the first breakdown.
Wow.
To turn you around, to let you know they run you. They're going to stick it up your ass. Then you go to your cell. And those guys in there are not very nice. They weren't like the Boulder County Jail guys. Those guys would kick your bed and make you get up, turn your light on in the middle of the night, and say, get out of bed, we're going to do a search at 2 in the morning. Those people are not nice at all.
Joey clearly has a great deal of resentment for these people, but he was glad it came to an end when he got transferred. Next, we have a falsely convicted African-American who was only 17 when he was convicted. Derek Hamilton.
So that was my first real experience. I was a young knucklehead. The lawyer that I had at the time, Candace Kurtz, said, look, young man, get your head out your ass and you better read these cases and you better see what's going on, like they railroad you. She took the stand and told the judge what the witness told her, and I was convicted. I was sentenced to 25 years to life, and it was at that moment that I know that I had to study law, that I had to really dig deep in the books, and I did it. New York State, thank God, had a law library. They had all the books in the world. All you had to do was apply yourself. And I spent the next 5 and 6 years working on my case. In 1987, the appellate division in that case found that the judge had no evidence whatsoever that me or anybody acting on my behalf had threatened this witness, did anything improper. And that the judge was right. There was no evidence that can prove that. So they reversed the conviction, and I was able to get out of prison after 6.5 years.
Imagine just how good this would feel, getting justice and leaving jail. Yet fate wasn't finished with Derek Hamilton, as he would soon find out.
Unbeknownst to me, there was a rogue cop by the name of Louis Garcella who felt that I didn't do enough time for this conviction. He didn't like the appellate division decision. 8 months later, I was in New Haven, Connecticut at a unisex salon that I had owned at the time. He came in that store and arrested me, told me I was going back to Brooklyn for a murder. And I'm like, a murder? Like, this can't be true. Like, again? Like, how many times has this happened? Went to New York. I was processed. About a year later, I went to trial. I was convicted.
The pendulum seemed to swing back against Derek quite rapidly. Would his determination get him out a second time?
They brought a witness in by the name of Jewel Smith, who said that she was present at the murder when her boyfriend was killed, that I was a gunman. I had a gun in my hand, and I shot this individual several times with this gun. But her original statement to the police said she wasn't there, that she never saw this crime. She was around the corner at a store. When she came back, her boyfriend was dead. The jury never heard that statement. But in any event, the ballistics evidence proved that this guy was shot with 2 different guns, that he wasn't shot in the building where she said he was shot at, but he was shot outside in the street. Despite this evidence, I was convicted. after I was convicted was when I learned that she had first told the cops at the crime scene she never saw the crime, but she had told it to a different detective. So I made a pro se motion to set aside the verdict. And in the motion, I argued that this detective that never came in that she gave the statement to could prove my innocence. And the judge ordered a hearing. For a year, he said, I can't give this guy a day in jail, let alone 15 years, which was the minimum. I want this witness to come back. The prosecutor said, I'm not calling her. And the judge said, if you don't call her back, this case is going to a new trial, right? They called her back, and she admitted that she never saw the crime, that the detective, Louis Scarcella, told her what happened and told her that if she didn't get up here and say that I committed the crime, she was going to jail. She was on parole. Her boyfriend was a felon that just got out. She had kids. They said, you're going to jail. She said, what was I supposed to do? Here's the system telling me this, that if I don't come in and say this, I'm going to jail. And I came in and said it.
The US justice system is probably one of the most corrupt industries in the world. Many thousands of inmates across America are probably innocent but just don't have the willpower or the resources to fight for their freedom. However, Derek Hamilton was not only able to get his freedom, but also helped others such as Bruce Bryan get his freedom too. Bruce Bryan.
And being charged with a homicide while the prosecutor involved in your conviction has a history of misconduct, and it wasn't until some 27, 26 years later that he finally gets arrested and gets convicted. Former Queens prosecutor John Scarpa, he gets convicted for the very same misconduct that I've been telling them about, that he's been doing for decades.
Another person who was falsely imprisoned is Bruce Bryan, who was able to get his freedom with the help of the lawyer Josh Dublin and inspiration from Derek Hamilton.
So keeping that in mind, I went to visit Bruce for the first time, and I said, nice to meet you. He says, nice to meet you. You know, I wrote you 4 years ago, he said to me. And, you know, I felt ridiculous. It was at a time where I didn't have the Perlmutter Center for Legal Justice, and I sort of was doing one-off cases, sometimes with the Innocence Project, sometimes by myself. And I was really struck by his presence, by how articulate he was, one of the most well-read human beings. He was telling me about, you know, how he finished the Viktor Frankl book, Man's Search for Meaning, and we had this amazing conversation about meditation and yoga, and we turned a half-hour visit into 3 hours to the point where they told me I had to, you know, go. So I went back and I looked for the letter, because I keep all the letters that I get, and I find this beautifully written, super articulate letter, and I'll never forget how he signed it, because it stuck with me. It said, "Oceans of Gratitude, Bruce Bryan."
This ended up laying a firm foundation for their relationship, which later was crucial for Bruce Bryan's liberation. Bruce's stories inside of jail are not unheard of, as he explains how he was in some of the worst jails in the most isolated parts of the country, but still made sure he improved himself.
The prison is it's the only economic development in that town. So you got brother, cousins, aunts, and uncles working in the same prison. So you get into an incident with one officer, you got a problem with the entire system. And that's just how it is when you go deeper upstate. I mean, borderline Canada, you know, Clinton, Dannemora, Great Meadows, and different prisons like that. So,
and the economy of the area depends upon
the prison, because there's really nothing there but snow during the wintertime and farming. So there's nothing else there. So the prison is the driving force behind the economy. So everyone's there, right? Siblings. So nepotism is, you know, is prevalent in these prisons. And one of the things that you encounter is that, you know, these prisons, it's not just cold in those areas. A prison is a cold environment, and it's up to you to create your own heat. It's a dark environment, and somehow you gotta find that light, you know, that light within yourself in order to travel, in order to, you know, to do something with your life more meaningful. You know what I mean? And it's difficult. It's not easy. You watch guys, you know, guys you talk to today, and, you know, tomorrow they're swinging from the light. They're dead, right? Yesterday they were fine. You know, the next morning you wake up, they've hung themselves. You know, and these are the things that you encounter day in and day out. and you still have to maintain a sense of humanity, right? You could either do two things. You could become bitter or you could become better. I chose the latter because one of the things I did early in my incarceration was make a conscious decision to not serve time, but to have time serve me. I made up my mind that if you were going to have me incarcerated for a crime I did not commit, then I was going to take this time and use that cell as if it was an office. I was going to use that school building as if it was a university and do the things that I needed to do to protect my soul. I was going to do it, and I made it my business to do so.
In prison, inmates either sink or swim, and Bruce Bryan chose not only to swim, but to plunge into self-improvement. Many don't choose this path and even finish their time and reoffend. Talking of reoffending, let's go back to Joey Diaz, where he talks about his second time in jail, this time for kidnapping and robbing a cocaine dealer. Joey Diaz.
Okay, what was, what happened with didn't you have someone hostage? Can you talk about that?
Yeah,
in
1987, I was 27 years old, whatever. I was working in Boulder. I was going to school at night, and I was snorting coke with 3 hands. And I got involved with some kid, and he was going to rob his roommate, and ended up robbing them, both of them. And then the guy that I had as a partner was going to rob me. What a tangled web we weave when we tangle to deceive. And it just so happens that the guy got caught. Like I told the guy I didn't want nothing to do with it, even though I had the coke with me. I sent the coke to Aspen, but the other guy, the guy that tried to rob me, he ended up getting pulled over with the guy we kidnapped in the trunk of his car, all fucking bandled up and shit. So I got arrested for the kidnapping too and everything.
Seems like Joey was quite a boss on the streets, but when he got to jail, it all changed. He found other inmates giving him roles to play, which he could not refuse due to their size. This arguably kickstarted his career as a stand-up comedian.
Now, what was a typical day in prison like for you? Like at that 6 months, you're in there 6 months, what's a typical day?
Living like a doctor.
You liked it?
Bro, you gotta remember, I went to prison for 4 years, I got sentenced, but guess what I became? I became a stand-up comic. I learned how to do stand-up comedy
in prison.
On Thursday nights, they used to have movie night.
I didn't even know that.
Dog, they used to have movie night on Thursday night. So the projector would always fuck up, like Ustream. It would always fuck up.
Joey, talking to the microphone.
It would always fuck up. So on Thursdays, the people just jokingly, I would always go, what the fuck is wrong with the projector? And everybody would say, Cuba, get up there and talk. So I would go up there on Thursday nights. It was, 200 people, and like 100 of them were black. So they go, Cuba, go up there and talk. And I would make fun of the black guys. And
what would you say?
We'd make fun of the kitchen. Like the fucking kitchen.
This is the beginnings of your stand-up career.
What'd you say?
We used to make fun of. I used to.
That's how the movie starts.
Bro, the first day in prison, they made me a baker. You don't tell people what you want. It's like Cuba. Like, yeah, on the outside I was a mechanic. Really? Well, in here you're a baker. You know what I'm saying? Here's a book. Learn how to make bagels. And I made these cinnamon rolls, dog, that almost blew up the kitchen. Right? These motherfuckers were big. So that afternoon they fired me as a baker, and they made me a fucking dishwasher and a stockroom clerk, right? So I was a dishwasher and a stockroom clerk. And whenever they had shitty meals, the guys I knew, when they were going through the line, I would yell, "Don't do it!" So I would go, "Don't do it."
How often were the meals bad?
3 times a week. But it didn't matter because at lunchtime, I was allowed to go to the store for 15 minutes. I worked it out where I had to drive to take garbage out, so I would go to the store for 15 minutes. Not only that, I would call in my order at the Chinese restaurant, so it would be ready by the time I got there. So I would go back to the prison with Chinese food and groceries. That's how strong I was in there.
Turns out he was also a boss in jail too, who managed to make trips back and forth to Chinese restaurants and grocery stores. He also made money by storing contraband for other inmates that was smuggled in through their kids.
Dog, I didn't fuck around in there. Plus, they were doing steroids and selling drugs.
In prison?
Please, like a motherfucker. So I was in the stockroom clerk, so they had to pay me rent. So because they never inspected the stockroom.
You stocked the
I would
roids.
say to you, yeah, I'll hold your roids, but you gotta give me
my God.
You gotta give me $3, you know what I'm saying? $3. It's all about dollars.
You gotta give me some cigarettes.
So I had roids, cigarettes, I had pills in there. They weren't mine. They just belonged to other people, but you put them under pallets. So I would give them a key whenever they needed to go take shit out of
So you were the connection.
I was the holder. Plus,
how did they get the steroids in? Somebody had to put it up their ass?
Yeah, whatever. I don't know. They got a bag. I don't know. I never asked.
Could you imagine shooting a steroid into your body?
How did they smuggle it in again?
Up their ass.
And then they put it where?
They're contact visits. Right. What you do is you take your fucking kid and you fill his pockets with the yum-yums, and while you're making out with your husband, you say, you want to see the kid? You pass the kid to the husband, and he takes the drugs out, then he gives you back the ugly kid.
Man, that makes me so.
Now on the topic of jail stories, did you know that there was a guest on Joe Rogan who shortly after his episode was convicted of 29 felonies and life in jail? This episode was quickly removed from the internet on all platforms. However, if you want to learn more about why episodes like this were removed, we made a video about all of the 60 episodes that have been completely taken down and only accessible in the deep depths of the internet. Click here to watch.